Sicily starts the new year with fire instead of fireworks on Mount Etna. A new lava flow on the eastern flank is spilling into the Valle del Bove, high above the towns below. Here is the important part. In the next minutes, we will break down how this distant light show can flip fast into ash in the flight paths and fresh cracks on the volcano. In the first hours of the new year, satellites started to see an unusual hotspot glowing on Etna's eastern flank. What began as a bright pixel in the night quickly turned into a clear signal that something new was happening on the volcano. As daylight returned over Sicily, monitoring teams confirmed that this was not a leftover from December. It was a fresh, effusive lava flow breaking out from a new fracture high above the Valle del Bove. That fracture sits on the upper wall of the valley on the eastern side of the volcano, well above the forests and villages on the lower slopes. From there, the lava has been spilling downslope as a slow but steady river of fire. The flow already stretches close to 3 kilometers inside the natural basin of the Valle del Bove, still several kilometers away from the nearest communities of Fornazo and Milo. For people watching from those towns, the eruption is a bright red line on the mountain, not a wall of ash at their doorstep. Here's the important part. A lava flow that stays inside that deep valley looks contained, but it is still a sign of real energy moving through the system. If the rate of lava changes, if new fractures open, or if gas and ash start to push higher into the sky, the story can shift quickly from a distant light show to a hazard for air routes over Sicily and for the people living along Etna's lower slopes. Next, we will look at what this New Year eruption could mean for flights for air quality and for the daily routine in the towns below the volcano. For people living around Etna, the question tonight is simple. Is this just a beautiful New Year lava show or the start of real trouble? According to INGV Etna News 24 and local authorities, the answer for now is cautious but reassuring. The front of the lava flow is still several kilometers away from the nearest villages. Fornazo sits roughly 5 kilometers from the lava. Milo is about 5.5 kilometers away. So far, there are no confirmed official reports of damage or injuries linked to this effusive New Year eruption. The key reason is where the lava is going. The entire flow is still moving inside the deep basin of the Valle del Bove. Volcanologists often describe this valley as a natural lava trap with high walls and a floor that has captured many flows in past eruptions. As long as the lava stays inside that basin, it does not have a direct path toward houses, roads, or power lines on the lower slopes. Italian outlet Onese has even called this a spectacular lava flow, but not dangerous for the villages under the current conditions. Here is the important part. That phrase only holds as long as the geometry of the flow and the pressure inside the volcano do not change in a sudden way. Above the villages, the next layer of concern is the sky. After the strong ash episodes in late December 2025, aviation alerts over Sicily were raised, and air traffic controllers increased their watch on volcanic ash near the flight corridors around Etna. In this early 2026 effusive phase, reports, cited by Etna News 24, say there has been no new closure of Catania Fontanarossa Airport. Flights are still using the airport, but operations are run in a high alert mode. Crews and controllers are ready to react if wind ash or visibility shift in a way that pushes risk toward the runways. The possibility of sudden disruption is still on the table because past eruptions in 2024 and 2025 have already forced temporary closures when ash drifted over the airport. Next, we will move from what residents and travelers can see on the ground and in the sky to what the instruments are telling us about Etna's internal state and how that shapes the scenarios for the coming hours and days. From a distance, tonight's scene on Etna looks simple. One lava flow is moving inside a deep valley. Flights are operating. Villages on the lower slopes are watching the red glow from their balconies. But inside the monitoring centers, nobody is treating this as a quiet holiday postcard. According to INGV and civil protection updates, this New Year eruption is a live test of how Etna might behave in the coming days. INGV has warned that Etna can switch from a mostly effusive phase to more explosive behavior if magma pressure changes or if existing channels start to clog. That is why the monitoring network is in a high alert mode. Seismic stations track tremor inside the mountain. GPS and tilt meters watch for small changes in ground shape that could signal magma moving at depth. Gas sensors and satellite images work together to spot any early sign that heat ash or gas is rising above the current level. Here is the important part. The goal is to see the volcano's next move in the data before it appears as a surprise in the sky over Sicily. Experts focus on two main risk scenarios. One is a shift toward taller, denser ash columns that reach the flight paths around Sicily. That pattern has already forced closures and delays at Catania's airport in past eruptions, even when lava stayed inside the Valle del Bove. The other scenario is a change in where the lava goes. A new vent could open lower on the flank, or the current flow could find a path out of the valley trap, sending molten rock toward areas that are not protected by its high natural walls. According to the latest summaries cited by Italian and international outlets, there are no clear signs yet that either of these worst paths is starting. The civil protection alert for Etna remains in the yellow range. That means heightened attention, not mass evacuation. The system is active, magma is moving, and the recent episodes in 2025 are a fresh reminder of how quickly Etna can step up from a distant red glow to an eruption that disrupts flights and drops ash on homes and streets. Next, we will look at how residents, local authorities, and travelers are being told to prepare and which practical steps matter most if conditions shift in the coming hours and days. For people who live on Etna's slopes, the message is not panic. It is readiness. Civil protection agencies and local authorities lean on the same simple advice they use in every active phase. Follow official channels for updates. Do not let short viral clips replace maps, bulletins, and clear instructions. Town halls, regional offices, radio stations, and verified social media accounts are treated as the main signal, not background noise. In many neighborhoods, preparation starts with small, practical checks. Families look at gutters and drains because ash and debris can block water during the next rain. They think about which streets flood first in a storm and which roads could be cut off if ash mud or small slides reach the lower slopes. People who have flights booked through Catania look more closely at messages from airlines in the airport, knowing that a change in wind or ash can move a departure time or force a diversion with little warning. Here is the important part. In a situation like this, the goal is not to move everyone out at once, but to make sure that if conditions change, people can move quickly, calmly, and in the right direction. For guides, visitors, and businesses on the mountain, the principles are just as clear. Stay away from restricted zones on the upper slopes. Respect trail closures and safety tape as hard lines, not suggestions. Treat the glowing lava as a real hazard, not a stage set for risky photos at the edge of the valley. Simple decisions in the quiet hours, like choosing safer routes or postponing a hike, can remove pressure from emergency teams if the alert level rises later. For now, daily life in the towns around Etna can continue with small adjustments rather than dramatic moves. People still go to work and school, shops still open, but each new update from monitoring centers and civil protection is read with more care than on a normal week. Behind that calm surface sits a basic idea. The earlier residents and travelers adjust their plans for possible interruptions, the less chaos there will be if ash rises higher or if new fissures open. Next, we will step back from these day-to-day choices and look at what this New Year eruption means for the longer story of Etna and how it fits into the pattern that made 2025 one of its most active years in recent memory. When you step back from this single New Year eruption, Etna looks less like an exception and more like a pattern. For centuries, this volcano has moved through cycles of quiet and bursts of intense activity, shaping land climate and daily life on its slopes. In recent years, Italian and international reports have described Etna as one of the most active volcanoes in Europe, with repeated episodes of lava fountains, ash falls, and short-term disruptions in and around Catania. The year 2025 fit that picture with several eruptions that sent ash into eastern Sicily's airspace and reminded residents that this mountain is not just a backdrop on the horizon. It is a system that never completely switches off. Here's the important part. This early 2026 lava flow is not outside that story. It is part of it. It shows that pressure is still moving through the volcano, that vents on its flanks can still open with limited warning, and that the Valle del Bove remains a crucial barrier between high-level activity and the communities below. Each new event adds another line to the scientific record about how Etna channels magma gas and heat. At the same time, it adds another lived memory for local people about what it means to see a red glow return to the mountain just days into a new year. For researchers, this kind of eruption is both a risk and an opportunity. Instrument networks on the slopes track how tremor cam and ground movement behave during a largely effusive phase. Satellite images show the shape, speed, and cooling pattern of the lava from above. Those details feed into better models of how future flows might travel, how fast they could approach roads, power lines, or villages, and how wind and weather might carry ash and gas toward or away from populated areas. In simple terms, each well-documented eruption gives scientists a clearer map of Etna's habits, and that map can be turned into more precise warnings when the next outbreak begins. For Sicily, the longer story is about balance. The volcano draws visitors, supports fertile soil for vineyards and farms, and stands as one of the strongest symbols of the island. At the same time, it demands steady respect, careful planning, and constant attention to the thin line between a spectacular show and real disruption. This New Year eruption is another reminder that life here is always written against the outline of a mountain that still breathes fire. Next, we will bring the story back to the present, pulling together the images from these first days of 2026, the lessons from 2025, and what they mean for anyone living, traveling, or planning under a volcano that never truly sleeps. Right now, Etna is writing the first lines of its 2026 story in real time. A fresh lava flow is moving inside the Valle del Bove. Cameras on the summit show a steady glow instead of violent blasts. Flights are still using the skies over eastern Sicily. From balconies in Catania and from roads along the slopes, the eruption looks like a controlled strip of fire pinned high on the mountain. For many people watching from other countries, it shows up as a short clip in a news feed, one more dramatic scene in a long list of natural events that do not touch their own streets. Here's the important part. What happens over the next days will decide whether this moment stays a local story or becomes something larger. If the lava keeps flowing inside the valley and ash stays low, Etna will remain a powerful but distant backdrop for daily life in Sicily. If magma pressure rises, if vents shift, or if weather pushes ash into busy flight paths, the same volcano could quickly force airport closures, travel disruptions, and a new round of cleanup in the city below. The difference between those paths will not be decided by a single spectacular video, but by quiet numbers coming in from seismic stations, gas sensors, satellites, and ground teams who know this mountain well. For anyone following this from afar, Etna is also a reminder of how connected these stories are. An ash cloud over Sicily can ripple through flight schedules in other countries. A lava flow that stays in a valley still feeds into climate research and risk planning far beyond Italy. The images from this New Year eruption, together with the lessons from 2025, will shape how scientists, local authorities, and travelers think about the next cycle, the next storm, the next time a red glow appears above the ridge. Next, we will close this update with a final snapshot of what Etna is telling us tonight and a brief look at what matters most for anyone living with flying past or simply watching a restless volcano like this one. Right now, Etna is writing the first lines of its 2026 story in real time. A fresh lava flow is moving inside the Valle del Bove. Cameras on the summit show a steady glow instead of violent blasts. For now, flights are still using the skies over eastern Sicily. From balconies in Catania and from roads along the slopes, the eruption looks like a controlled strip of fire pinned high on the mountain. For many people watching from other countries, it appears as a short clip in a news feed, one more dramatic scene in a long list of natural events that never reach their own streets. Here's the important part. What happens over the next days will decide whether this moment stays a local story or becomes something larger. If the lava keeps flowing inside the valley and ash stays low, Etna will remain a powerful but distant backdrop for daily life in Sicily. If magma pressure rises, if vents shift, or if weather pushes ash into busy flight paths, the same volcano could quickly force airport closures, travel disruptions, and another round of cleanup in the city below. The difference between those paths will not be decided by a single spectacular video, but by quiet numbers coming in from seismic stations, gas sensors, satellites, and ground teams who know this mountain well. For anyone following from afar, Etna is also a reminder of how connected these stories are. An ash cloud over Sicily can ripple through flight schedules in other countries. A lava flow that stays in a valley still feeds into climate records research and risk planning far beyond Italy. The images from this New Year eruption, together with the lessons from 2025, will shape how scientists, local authorities, and travelers Think about the next cycle, the next storm, and the next time a red glow appears above the ridge. Next, we will move into the closing of this update, pulling together what Etna is telling us tonight and what matters most for people living with flying past or simply watching a restless volcano like this one.